Hi, I'm Dr. Cary.
And I'm Dr. Jonathan.
And welcome to
Coffee Talk.
Cheers.
Coffee's getting a little cool for this other episode.
Yeah.
So here we are, episode number
Cuatro.
4 for those who aren't Spanish speakers.
Desera in Greek.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
So today we're going to follow a similar format to what we did last time. You can see we're in the same outfits. We have more than one. We wear more than scrubs, but we're going to film back to back here. Today's we're going to cover 2 topics again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The first topic is going to be your favorite live sporting event
That you attend.
that you attended.
Right.
And then the second topic, we're going to talk about the changes in
In dentistry.
in dentistry in general.
Over the last 4 decades or so.
Right. So I'll be able to cover.
Since I finished dentistry.
I'll be able to cover the latter half.
The
of
latter
that.
half, right.
So why don't we get right into it? So, Dad, what is your favorite sporting event you ever attended?
It's probably considered, up to just very recently, one of the best college basketball games ever. And that was the Eastern Regional Final in 1992 between Duke and Kentucky. And how I got to go to the game is my brother went to Duke Medical School and was very involved in the Alumni Association. I think he was even president at one time. And he was able to procure a couple of tickets to this game. This game was at the Spectrum, and we were not necessarily down in front, but up and back. But what was most interesting and entertaining was that in front of us were 3 Kentucky diehard fans. Now, I don't have any relationship with Duke, but I was pulling for Duke because my brother went there. So that was the game that went into triple overtime and was won by a long a football bomb to Christian Leitner, who turned around at the foul line and sank a swish in the 3rd overtime. I don't recall the score, that's unimportant, but the place went wild. And every time Kentucky went ahead, the guys in front of us would turn around and jeer us, and every time Duke went ahead, we tapped them on the shoulder and jeer them until the 3rd overtime and the end of the game, and we all went totally ballistic on that. It was great.
That does make a sporting event better when you almost feel like you have a rival right next to you.
Yes. As we've experienced
Villanova,
versus Georgetown games.
That's exactly right. Let them have it. We'll tell you that story.
That's another. That's another story.
Let's do that story. Let's do that story another time. Yeah. That I would say that Christian Leitner shot was probably the most iconic NCAA tournament shot in history until 2016. Enter Chris Jenkins and the underdog Villanova Wildcats, of which we are both alums of Villanova, if you didn't know, and I'm sure you know from the colors of our logo and the colors of our office were modeled after Villanova. So, Chris Jenkins hit it at the buzzer, passed from Ryan Archidiakono, and they beat
North Carolina,
yes, dreaded UNC Tar Heels. So that I would say is now the most iconic shot in NCAA history, because the stakes were even higher there.
Although you weren't there, we were at the tavern downtown that was filled with
Villanova fans.
1,000 Villanova, well, maybe 500 Villanova fans.
That was great.
Packed to the gills.
Yeah.
And we watched the big screen, and
you and Mom were there. I was there with me.
Yeah.
I did make it to the game against Kansas 2 games prior, but probably one of my big life regrets is not going to the Final Four that year.
Who would have known?
Yeah, who would have? I didn't. Well, we were slated to play Oklahoma, which beat us by like 20 something earlier in the year, and then we go and we wallop them by like 44 or something like that.
Correct.
So, anyway, but hey, the outcome is what we wanted. All right, so for mine, I'm going to say a game we were at together. This is 2004. The Eagles beat the Atlanta Falcons to go to the Super Bowl. And that was after years of them losing in the NFC Championship under Andy Reid, and finally they got one. Now they ended up losing to the Patriots, but we got some sweet revenge later on. But I remember that feeling when the game was locked up and everyone was saying, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. I still get hair raised on my arms when I think about that.
Yeah.
And it was freezing. You remember how cold
that game, I think, was 17 degrees. And I had been at a CE course in Florida and was Dr. Larry Montgomery and I got the last flight out of Florida and landed in Philadelphia. And the snow was coming down fast and furious, and I had to stop periodically to clean my windshield because my wipers couldn't keep up. But got home in time, thawed out, and then the next morning got ready to get chilly.
That was very cold that game, but
brutally cold.
Man, that was.
I remember I went to
amazing.
go get hot chocolate, and in order to pay, I had to take my glove off and give the person dollars, and so I had my glove off when I walked back to bring the hot chocolate, and by the time I got to our row,
different type of Sunday celebrations.
Right, my hand was hurting with pain because it was so cold. I couldn't wait to put my glove back on.
Oh man,
but that was a great memory.
That was a great memory.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Well, I don't know that we're going to transition incredibly well from that memory to the next topic, but why don't we talk about the more clinical question of the day, which is, Dad, how's dentistry changed since you started?
Yeah, dentistry through the ages.
We could spend hours on this topic.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm going to try to categorize things into materials, techniques, technology, insurance. I'll just dab on that slightly. And so let's talk about the different materials that we use in dentistry. So when someone has a cavity in the past, and currently as well, but not as much, teeth would be cleaned out and filled with amalgam or silver fillings. So because silver actually turns dark as time goes on through the process of oxidation, they're unsightly.
People don't like to see the dental work that's been done.
That's for sure. And we live in a very cosmetically driven society. In the past, people would smile and you'd see a gold crown on their front tooth. Well, we don't do that anymore.
Unless you ask.
Unless.
Because I've done a couple gold crowns recently.
And if you want a diamond chip, you have to bring your own diamonds. Okay. So we've become much more cosmetic, but that's been driven by the science of materials, material science. So the materials that we use to fix teeth need to be biologically compatible. They can't make you sick or cause inflammation or poison you. They have to be compatible with living and with your oral tissues. They need to be strong because the mouth acts like a vice sometimes because you have strong muscles and you can clamp down on things with several hundred pounds of pressure. So the materials need to be strong, they need to be cosmetic, they need to be biologically compatible. So over the years we've gone from amalgam to composite resin. Composite resin is in the plastics family. And many years ago, when I was in dental school, it would be similar to mixing a base and a catalyst.
All right, we're getting a little sciencey here, so let's just peel back for a moment. The change is, which you get into great detail on, is less silver fillings,
right? More
white fillings. So let's not
get too technical.
Let's not get too technical. People are gonna start snoozing on us.
Tuning out. Okay.
All right. So okay, you talked about gold crowns. So now gold crowns transition to what?
So gold crowns transitioned into PFMs, porcelain fused to metal crowns. So PFMs were the, hate to sound punny, the gold standard. Because they were cosmetic, they were strong, and they lasted a long time.
More cosmetic.
More cosmetic.
More cosmetic than gold.
More cosmetic than gold.
Or titaniums or silver, something like that.
Right.
Stainless steel.
But one of the negatives that occurred with PFM crowns is that if there was any kind of a gum recession, you would see the margin of the metal undercasting, and it would look like a dark line at the gum line.
Dark gray line. You may know people who you can see that and they're smiling. What's going on in that thing?
Right. So originally that's not how they appeared, because usually the margin of the crown is slightly under the gum line, so you don't see that. But what improved that scenario is the development of very strong and aesthetic porcelains.
Ceramics. Yeah.
In the ceramics family. So we went from gold crowns to PFMs to all ceramic crowns.
So now we did talk about the gold standard. The gold crowns are still excellent, and many people would argue they are still the ideal in certain scenarios. We still use PFM crowns because they still serve a very specific purpose. Like if you're doing really long span bridge, for example, you need to have some strength underneath it. And now we've gotten better with the ceramics. We've got a whole lot better as we introduced zirconia, and I know you're going to talk about that in a second. But there are still times in which we say gold is still the best here, porcelain fused to metal is still the best here. If you don't have enough space, you need to have a metal bite. And then, of course, if you can do ceramics or different variations of porcelain crowns, you can do that. But there's no one size fits all when it comes to that material.
Correct. And as you mentioned, there are certain demands and criteria that dictate which material we need to use. So, for example, if we need to make a crown on the very back tooth, typically your second molars, they need to be exceedingly strong, because the strongest part of your bite, the heaviest part of your bite, is in the back of the mouth, not in the front of the mouth. So oftentimes we use zirconia crowns. It's in the ceramic family, aesthetic, very strong. As we go more anterior, first molars, premolars, and forward, we use a different kind of ceramic porcelain that can be considered more transparent or translucent,
Just a little bit more static.
and more cosmetic.
So yeah, basically the long and short of it is, your dentist has to have a really good understanding of the materials, so you're not putting a round peg into a square peg into a round hole. Yeah. I always screw that up. But okay, so we talked about filling material. We talked about crowns. Why don't I talk a little bit about some technology?
Good.
All right, so one of the things that's changed even from when I was in dental school, and I graduated 2014, that's right, yeah, so about 8 years ago now, was the shift into digital dentistry. Mm-hmm. And it started with the transition from not having paperwork in the office and having everything be computerized, records being computerized. The next transition that happened was radiographs, so x-rays. So a lot of times there were, you grew up needing to, you did your early stages of dentistry doing film, dipping into the fixer, and what was the other stuff?
Developer and fixer.
Yeah. We had to have dark rooms in the offices.
We had an automatic X-ray developer.
So we had to develop
it had to be in a dark
X-rays.
closet. It couldn't be exposed to light because the films would go bad.
Right, and so now the transition went to now digital radiography, which is a massive, massive improvement in so many ways. One, because it's safer. There's less radiation.
Approximately 75 to 90% less radiation.
A massive reduction in radiation between the old film-style X-rays and digital X-rays. And the other thing is they're instantaneous. Right. So you can take a film, it's boom, it's right there on the screen. You can manipulate it. You can change the contrast, so we can see a lot more than we ever used to before too. So
instead of holding them up to the light and looking like this.
that's right. So even when I was in dental school, I still learned how to do fixing and developing of films. And half of the clinics when I was in school, we still had to do that. By the time I had graduated as a senior, I think we had gone fully digital at Temple. So that is one of the waves of digital dentistry. Now, the newest component, other than CBCT, which is a variation of 3D radiography, which now many dental offices have. We have here at the office. If I want to do an implant, for example, I like to see the bone in 3 dimensions. So, but the other component is digital scanning, which is really exciting topic because people hate impression material, the goopy stuff that you would gag on when trying to take an impression. Now we can do it digitally. And one of my goals for our office in particular is I want to be 100% digital within 5 years. Now, we've been using a digital scanner and a digital milling unit, which we can create a crown in a single visit, which is pretty amazing. It's called CEREC. Many of you have experienced that. And we don't do that in every situation because we like to use our lab to do, I'd say, the majority of our crowns. But we can take a digital scan of the tooth and never have to use any gooey material in your mouth. And we just purchased 2 more scanners because to see something with your own 2 eyes is incredible. And so sometimes when it comes to relaying information about what we see in your mouth, whether it's how your bite works or where that's developed in your teeth or orthodontic considerations or even cracked teeth, all of that can be literally digitally scanned and the information captured and it's reproduced on the screen for you instantaneously. So I feel like it gives the patient such a good advantage to be able to actually see what we're seeing because communication is essential.
So a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, it's simple as that.
And a scan is worth 1,000,000. So with the scanner, it's something that you see on the screen. So it's an educational tool, but in addition, it's a diagnostic tool for us. So the scanning technology has allowed us to do more conservative work and early diagnosis because we see things so much better and magnified with the scanner.
And the best part is that now as we do more and more scanning in dentistry as a whole, we see the development of apps and tools that can do things like smile prediction, or you can overlay your face and we can change your smile and you can see what that looks like, digital smile design. Or we can see how your orthodontics are going to appear before you ever do anything. So it's pretty amazing. I'm excited to introduce more of this technology into our practice. We're, I think, a few weeks out from having it in the office by the time this is edited. But yeah, that's been a pretty massive technological introduction.
I remember reading an article, and I don't know why it stuck in my head, but it did, maybe about 30 or 35 years ago. And I remember reading an article saying, in the future, there will be no impressions. And I thought to myself, I said, who's the nincompoop that wrote that article? How could you make a crown without an impression? Little did I know, the computer geeks were already working on this 30, 35 years ago, and it has been enhanced so many times since. We're very fortunate to be living in this age. You know, they used to think of the 70s as the golden age of dentistry. That's ancient history now compared to what we do now.
Yeah, it's pretty unfathomable what technology has been able to do in dentistry. It's like every 3 years you have to relearn because you have a new tool at your disposal. And again, I've only been out for 8 years now, and oh boy, so much has happened in 8 years in terms of the technology. And I think it's growing exponentially fast. So why don't we save like insurance and stuff for another day? We'll keep it with those
highlights,
in
and
dentistry.
we have a lot more to talk about.
Oh yeah, we'll save it for another episode.
But don't worry, there won't be a quiz.
No, the quiz is, tell us what is something that you would want to see different in dentistry, and let's put it in the next decade. And I'll tell you if it even exists already, because there's a lot of things that exist that just aren't exactly mainstream, for example.
Right.
So anyway, thanks for joining us for another coffee talk.
Cheers.
Cheers. We're matching Limbo mugs. And we hope to see you tuning in for episode 5. As always, please give us any type of suggestions, feedback, or things you want us to talk about, and pass us on to a friend who may want to see some 2 corny dentists get at it. Cheers.
Take care. Bye-bye.